Learning history with all of the senses. This is the final part of my audio intro series to Jolly's Mill Pond Farm. I'm Angi Kane. My husband Bill Kane and I are the owners of historic Jolly's Mill Pond in Williamsburg, Virginia. And this is the final audio episode of our mostly uncut series answering questions about our work. So, why do we focus on Black and Indigenous culinary heritage? Okay, the answer to that goes back to my childhood in Brooklyn. And when I was in school, like a lot of people, Black history was limited to the same 8 people in February, with a few bullet points about the horrors of slavery. It was generally flat and kind of uninterestingly presented. So if I had questions, I usually I would find the answers on my own. Fast forward several years, when we became owners of our property, we discovered this unknown Black history that was connected to colonial Williamsburg and other points in early Virginia. Not the history of the one percenters, but the history of everyday, mostly anonymous people, and we were fundamentally hooked. This led to our Black history tours, but the tours weren't enough to sustain our property. And that's where we started to explore teaching history with food, because food connects all of us. When we learn about food, it's so easy to learn about the history and the cultures who made these different dishes possible. And with Southern food in particular, we learn about the strong African, strong West African, African American, and indigenous influences on what appears on our plates. We would explore that, for instance, in our history of barbecue class or our history of Johnny cakes classes where we take authentic historic recipes, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Footnote, just because they're authentic doesn't mean they taste good. And we learn about the people behind these recipes. In certain cases, for instance, how food was preserved speaks to the genius of the people who preserved them. Our ancestors had to understand different types of meat and food preservation techniques before refrigeration. This we cover in our history of bacon class. And it's amazing how much knowledge they acquired and passed down before there were any formal textbooks teaching these basic principles that would keep people healthy, that would keep them safe, and actually in certain cases would just plain keep them alive. So we explore that in our history of bacon class. As we started to do deep dives into local food, you can't do that without understanding local plants. And that's led to another evolution in what we do. This led to our learning how Black and Indigenous communities historically used native plants and trees medicinally. For instance, learning how every part of the native sassafras tree was used for thousands of years by Native Americans medicinally. And when enslaved Africans came here, and when colonists were here, they shared that knowledge with other groups. And by the way, what we also note in our History of Virginian Teas class is how many of these native plants and trees have been clinically proven to be effective for treating all manner of ailments. So what we've learned is that there's such a connection historically between Black and Indigenous communities in our area. It would almost be irresponsible to not include one when discussing the other. Obviously, I have a strong emphasis on Black culinary heritage. It's reflected in some of the ingredients that we cultivate on our field, ingredients that connect us to West African heritage for the most part, but also are a nod to other parts of the world. But these deep explorations of food, how certain dishes arrived on our plate, it's not just limited to one group. It's been influenced by many groups. And as certain communities have historically been marginalized, we take every opportunity that we can to celebrate their wisdom that for generations may have been unrecognized. So that's how we've evolved into Black and Indigenous culinary heritage, and now exploring certain aspects of folk medicine in our History of Virginian Teas class. So now this is the end of my intro to Jolly's Mill Pond in audio form. Starting next week, I'll be posting video content to YouTube and to other social media. So you can show your support for the work that we do by following us and subscribing on all of our social channels, and you'll find links to that in the video's description. You'll also find links to all of our social on our website, jollysmillpond.com. Footnote: August is tea month at Jolly's Mill Pond Farm. Throughout August, we'll be sharing samples of foraged or wild crafted teas, our new tea blends, sharing their history, and demos of some of our upcoming fall classes. So check out our website, subscribe to our newsletter, and we'll keep you posted as all of the events of August are scheduled. So thank you for taking the time to hear about our story, and truly, we look forward to meeting you soon.